Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 353. 353. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'll be your host for tonight, being Friday, and we'll discuss some constitutional matters as well as legal case law related issues. Uh, we'll start the program as we normally do, which is I'll say a short prayer, after which I'll do a short reading. I don't see anyone else in the background so far yet, so I'll proceed. And if and when I get to see someone in the background, then I'll just let them in uh, as the rest of our panelist members. But for right now, in the interest of time, we'll just move along and try to cover as much materials as we can because we have a major task in front of us, which is the revamping of the whole constitution of Belize that is being attempted, I would say, as a matter of a seditious activity, in addition to grabbing a hold of powers that does not correspond in the administrative part of our governance, because some of those powers are reserved to the plebiscite, and some of the changes that they want to make are in direct violations of sections 2, 3, all the way through section 19 of our constitution, inclusive of section 20, section, many other sections, I would say. I'll just leave it at that for right now, instead of enumerate them all, because it's quite an extensive amount of changes that they are proposing, none of which the public had asked them to deal with in the first place. The public did not ask them to go and tamper with the Constitution. They came up with this idea that they wanted to make some changes to the Constitution, and they would solicit the acquiescence of the public to afford them the privilege to make those changes, in addition to others that they have not divulged so far. Uh, there was a what they call a Constitution Reform Commission, which subsequently was renamed as the PCC, People's Constitution Commission or Committee, whichever one they want to classify it as. And that group was supposed to have gone out and educate the public as to what the Constitution of Belize consists of, what is in there, what is it that the government was proposing or wanting to make amendments to. And because they wanted to make amendments that were far beyond what is normally accepted under the present constitution, they would have had to overthrow the present constitution, which, as I said earlier, they would have to commit sedition in order to be able to achieve the end objective that they are pursuing. And I'm getting into the program. As a matter of fact, I'm prefacing my statements already, and I'm jumping the gun. So let me go back and just say the prayer and follow the same format as we normally do. Thank you very much again, those of you who will be listening to us tonight, and those who will be listening to us over the weekends and at other occasions or time, according to your own schedule or at your own timeliness. We do appreciate the fact that you have been giving us some nice ratings in terms of listening to the programs and affording us the privilege to take up your valuable time. So we have always promised and continue to promise that we'll try to do the best we can with our programs in the sense of bringing worthy programming that you, the people of Belize and at home and abroad, as well as others, will be satisfied to know that what we had to offer, what we produced or presented, had some merits. And that is our agenda and objective, to inform and elucidate our people. So I'll bow my head for a second and just say a short prayer. Divine loving Father, we thank you once again for the privilege of life, first of all, and secondly, for the privilege that you have afforded us to come before thy presence at this moment, to still be alive and be among our family members, friends, and loved ones and countrymen. We pray that thou must bless our country of Belize, its people and leadership. We pray that thou must bless this country of the United States, its people and leadership, despite all the travails and trials and tribulations that we're going through. We pray that thou mayest have mercy upon us all. Please bless our family members, our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, those of us who have. Please bless our brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, and all the other extended family members. We pray that thou mayest bless those people who are in war zones, tornadoes, earthquakes, uh, volcano eruptions, and those people who are in flooding area all over the world. There's massive amount of flooding going on, and people are losing their lives. Others are losing their property and being put into more dire straits. Loving Father, in a special way, we pray that we must help the people of our country to cease and desist, and, or at least as a minimum, reduce the level of unnecessary violence that is going on right now. And those who are driving around acting crazy and pretending like they don't care about the future, they don't care about themselves, much less anybody else. They're causing unnecessary mayhem, and we pray that God must help us in that regard as well. For we ask His mercies in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much for allowing me the privilege to follow the regular format of our program. Those of you who subscribe to what is it that we're doing and how is it that we're trying to get it done. As Mr. Wade is in the habit of saying, on this program, we're not preachers. But sometimes I like to tease him, because I tell him, well, Mr. Wade, we may not be preachers, or at least we're not trying to preach right now. But as someone who has indulged and delved into the preaching activity, sometimes I come off as if I'm actually preaching or wanting to preach. But nevertheless, let me stop banter around and just get to the serious part of our program, if you permit me. I just want to do something quickly here. Just a second. Okay. Okay, so I'll do a short reading from Proverbs. I'll read Proverbs chapter 7, and starting at verse 1. Reads as follows. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of thine eye. Verse 3. Bind them upon thy fingers. Write them upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman. I did not specifically choose that. I just opened the Bible and went to that particular section. And I think it fits in line with the aim, objective, and purpose of this program, as I stipulated a little earlier. That is that we're not here to preach to anybody in terms of trying to do any religious conversion or teachings. We're here trying to deal with the affairs of our country as best we can, and especially as regards to some of the treacherous things that is going on under the leadership of our country, of people whom the plebiscite and the electorate of our country put into office to exercise the powers of governance according to how the Constitution stipulates that they should, which is to say, based in the preamble, it says, government shall entertain and practice policies of state, implement policies of state that accrue to the well-being and best interests of the country as a whole and to the people in particular, and that the people are supposed to be the beneficiaries of government activities. Unfortunately, that is not what we are currently experiencing in our country. We have people who become elected as the officials to do the caretaking of our government, and instead they govern on our behalf as is required of them, and they swear allegiance to the Constitution and to the country and to the people. And as soon as they get the ascension of power of governance, they run off with that power in their back pocket and they start committing all kind of treachery and evil things against the very same people who has elected them to power, giving them the privilege to serve. Because serving in government is a privilege. It's not something that they own, even though some of them pay a few dollars to some of the people that vote for them. It appears the way they behave is that because they pay a few dollars to some of their followers, they think that they have bought the election and they own the system when they come into governance. And they start to misbehave, start to commit crimes under the color of law, start to foster misbehavior by the police elements and the rest of some of the other elements in the system. They start mismanaging their accounts and the affairs, financial affairs of the country. They want to haul and pull the legal system of the country and make it be the way they want it run, for it to be exercised the way it is written according to the Constitution. They behave and act like if the Constitution is not existing, and or that they could care less whether it does exist, because nobody is going to hold the government accountable to acting in good faith on behalf of the people. So what they do is they become scofflaw, and they don't follow the precepts, principles, and guidance as required of them. Instead, when the Constitution tells them that they should do certain things in a certain manner in order for their actions to be constituted as legal, lawful, and constitutional, they say to hex with the Constitution. Whatever comes out of their head is the law of the day. When Section 2 of the Constitution, I believe, says that the Constitution is the supreme law of the country. And if any other law, such as the law that they are authorized to make, if any of those other laws that they make is inconsistent with the Constitution, then those other laws that they made, to the extent of its inconsistencies with the Constitution, is null and void. I see someone in the background. Okay. This is my cousin on the next chief engineer and on the one of our next panelists. He'll put himself on at his convenience. So I could continue, I guess, verbalizing instead of breaking. Just give him his chance to do whatever he's trying to do. And I'll just proceed. So what I'm intimating then is that they have undertaken this crazy idea of trying to do wholesale changes to the Constitution so that the Constitution can become more pliable to how they want to manage and run the country. And as a result, as I said earlier in my stipulations, they have gone on to create this PCC group, spent millions of dollars, to foster that group and to get a report out of that group. But before they submit that report, their task was supposed to have been to go to the general public, inform the general public as to what is in the Constitution, so that people can make a decision as to whether or not what the government wants to change is acceptable, viable. Because there are some parts of the Constitution that can be changed currently under the present system just by the government having its majority, and in the case now where they have not only just a majority but a super majority, that they can go to the House and make certain changes to certain parts of the Constitution, so long as they don't violate the separation of powers doctrine, or so long as they don't separate or violate the constitutional basic rights, civil rights of the society. Otherwise, they got to first get the acquiescence of the public through a referendum to authorize them that power that is currently reserved under the powers of the plebiscite. And they can only reach those powers by going through a referendum under under I'm drawing blanks. The Representation of the People's Act, currently Cap 9. And they refused to try and follow that. Oceania had met all the requirements to have its legal referendum being put in motion, and they were denied. The churches, under the marijuana stipulation that the government was trying to make a law to change, had its referendum documents as well filed, and the government bamboozled them out of it by saying that, okay, well, they won't deal with it right now, they'll just wait for a little while, and if they decide to revisit the matter, they'll go back and follow the Constitution and do the referendum. So instead of them having a national referendum, they're trying to hoodwink the people. That is, to go to a small little village of a few hundred people, do a referendum there, and piggyback on the outcome of that referendum, which, as far as I have been able to see, they already know that based on the historical voting pattern in that particular village, it's likely that they will have an affirmative response, so that then they can take that and presumably grandfather it into the laws of the country and say, well, those people had the right to have a referendum, they were given a referendum, and they choose to have this particular law put in place for their needs. But they will come now and use that law and force that law against the national law and the Constitution, and violate the Constitution and violate the rest of the population's rights to have to participate in a referendum to deal with those matters. So they're playing all kind of hanky panky and hide and seek with informations, and they're not managing according to how they're supposed to manage. They're acting like scofflaws. But I want to go here, for example, and I had this. Okay, I got it back again. Okay, let me read the title of it before I. It's the compilation of the PCC recommendations. So that PCC made some recommendations to the Prime Minister, who then has to take those recommendations to Cabinet. They got to go through those recommendations in Cabinet and then decide what they're going to take to the House for the House to vote on in order for it to hopefully become law. But they have not done a referendum, which is required for it to become lawful. And some of the things that they're trying to do, as I said, is what this tonight program is all about. Again, because we have been dealing with some of them in the past, we did not complete the whole package, and we end up doing bits and pieces every time we get an opportunity. So tonight, I assigned tonight's program to follow up on pursuing and reading and dealing with some of those matters and trying to bring some clarification to the general public, because the PCC Commission did not fulfill its obligation to teach the people the Constitution of Belize. And we have been attempting to do that for the last couple of years and a little bit more. So far, we have 353 programs, a lot of which have been dealing with the same particular matter. So let me stop ranting and, prefacing and get into the program proper. So I want to go to some of these recommendations. I want to speak to some of them. Let's go to recommendation number. Okay, let's see. It's fine. Make it big enough so I can see. Turn it now. Okay. I want to go to, let's see, turn it sideways. Okay. Okay, so let me go a little further. Recommendation. I want to go into the 50s, number 50. Where is it? Okay, I'm at 49 right now, so I'm close to what I'm searching for. Okay, 56. It's 56, 55, 53, 55. Okay. It's 55. Let me see if it's 54 was. Okay, so I'll pass 54 and I'll start off tonight at recommendation number 55. Oops. I reduced it in size just now. That's not what I'm trying to get done. Okay. Recommendation number 55 says amend to remove the Governor General's powers. Now, that's a mouthful there, even though it's a short statement of about six to seven words. Says amend to remove Governor General's powers. I'm quite certain that most Belizean are unaware that this particular recommendation is being made. And one of the reasons is this document that I'm reading currently has not been published publicly. I'm going to repeat myself. This document that I'm reading from has not been published publicly. So most people, as I stipulated earlier, would not know that this request is being made or recommendation is being made, which is a recommendation to commit sedition. Now, again, I hope most people understand what the word sedition implies. That is that if we in the country of Belize have a Governor General who is the head, who is the representation of the head of state, and that Governor General works on behalf of and operates under the powers vested in that Governor General from the head of state, then it means that if the Governor General is the person that the elected officials they have to come to as a matter of process, procedures, and protocols after a general election, those who win in the election, the one that controls the majority, is then authorized to approach the Governor General for ascension of powers to govern. Because the executive powers of Belize, according to the Constitution of Belize, says that the executive power of Belize rests in the head of state, and the Governor General works at the pleasure of the head of state, through whom the powers of governance is assented to the Governor General, for the Governor General to share the day-to-day operations and executive control and management of the country with those electors who win the election, who then constitute, after they are assented the powers, they then constitute what is called the executive extension of powers in Belize. And the powers of the executive rest in the head of state by and is allowed to be transferred to the Governor General, for the Governor General to assent to those who win the election. And after they win the election and they are assented to, they then constitute the day-to-day governance of the country. And the executive powers of Belize may be exercised by these individuals with the acquiescence of the Governor General. Now, if Belize was fully independent in the sense that most people recognize or not or stipulate when they say Belize is independent, we would not be acting in the capacity of a country who does not elect its head of state, right? The head of state of most independent countries, especially Republican countries, are elected by their plebiscite or the people of that country. But when we in Belize accepted our independence under the Commonwealth, in order to have a defense guarantee, because we did not have an army, we did not have a navy, and we did not have an air force. But we did have a neighbor, a bellicose neighbor, almost 36 times bigger than us in terms of population and military and other capacity to wage war. We had to keep ourselves under support and guidance, because for all intents and purposes we became an independent pauper. We did not have the economic means by which to survive as an independent country. We did not have the economic means by which to create a military or an army or an air force or a navy to defend ourselves. So these people now, whom we have as the government of the day, is trying to dispatch or get rid of the person that gives them the power to govern the country. I don't understand why is it that they have the belief that they can do that without breaching the rule of sedition. I do not understand why is it that they're attempting to convey the idea that if they can get rid of the head of state and they can then take over that powers of the head of state, that should be all right. When in fact, right now, they don't have those ultimate powers in their hands. And they're mistreating the public. They're abusing the public. They're pulling on a system of governance. What do you think they would do if they were to have ultimate power and they were accountable to no one? I would venture to say that we'd be in a much worse situation. Good night, Gregory.
Good night, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Would you want to take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and do your introductory at least before I move forward?
Good night to you, the people at home and abroad. Thanking you for tuning in to this 353rd edition of Belizean Affairs. I go back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. By the way, before I move forward, I took note of that article that you had penned, and I was very impressed with it. And I was thinking that maybe tonight we could have probably let you take part of tonight's legal program to deal with some of the matters that you brought up in that particular article, huh? To expand a little bit, since it's prescient and current, as a matter of fact. So maybe you could go about, meditating or thinking about that before we finish the program, so you can bring in a part of that, was, if you don't mind. But I want to pursue this angle that I was on just now for a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Okay?
go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so like I stipulated earlier, under recommendation 55, it says amend to remove the Governor General's powers. How can you amend the constitution of the country to remove the powers of the person that gives you assent to govern? Who is going to give you assent to govern then after that? If you were to be smart enough and capable enough and successful enough to achieve that objective, to dispatch the person that authorized you powers of governance, where are you going to get your authority of powers of governance from? That's an ask and answered question, okay? I'm not asking anyone to really stipulate an answer to the question. I'm just being facetious to try and say how malicious and devious these people are that we're dealing with. By trying to get rid of the powers of the Governor General, I don't know if the head of state is going to decide to not have a representative that on his behalf being the Governor General, but instead he's going to go and authorize those powers, executive powers, to the Prime Minister and Cabinet directly. But that is not what these guys are contemplating or hoping for. They are hoping that by getting rid of the Governor General, that means that the Governor General boss will be gotten rid of too as well. Because without any Governor General, then there's no need for a Governor General. And according to them, in their puny minds, they, you know, they will assume those powers onto themselves. And there's no way that they can do so, except there's a overthrow of the current system that we have, implement a new constitution after the overthrow of the system, whether it's done violently or however they're able to achieve the objective. But at the bottom line, the first thing they have to do is overthrow the existing system. You cannot have two systems concurrently at the same time. You cannot have two different constitutions at the same time. You can only have one at a time. So for all intents and purposes, the implication then is that they're hoping that by writing in the new constitution that they want to write or the modification that they want to make, that they will amend the constitution to remove the governor general's powers, that just by them physically getting that done or doing that, that constitutes a legal, lawful, and constitutional change. I beg to differ. Uh, it says replace the governor general's functions, especially as regards to the emergency powers, with the prime minister and the National Assembly. That is that the prime minister will then become the governor general, or act in the capacity or with the powers of the governor general, and he and his colleagues in cabinet and the assembly will work things out on behalf of Belize. After 44 years plus of independence, they have provided us with no means of a proper defense. They have provided us with no means of an economic development to be able to do for ourselves what we need to do for ourselves. Every budget that they have read, including the current one, is dependent on hands out from other people abroad, and it's depending on tourism, which, for all intents and purposes, you know, can 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 disappear overnight at any given moment. But I think I want to read one more which is number 56, because number 56 kind of answer the question that I was asking in number 55. Okay, so let me read 56 so that we can have both of them to debate a little further. Uh, Number 56 says they recommend that they amend the Constitution for removal of Her Majesty in Council, or in this case, no, that word should change from Her Majesty to His Majesty in Council. So the HER should be HIS. That section 22(1) in the definition of court should be amended to remove the reference of Her Majesty in Council. Uh, I'll leave that part there for right now, and I'll just ask Greg if you have some contribution on those two items that I just read just now before I move on.
Well said,
Are you,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir. Are you too?
What the government is trying to do is implement as though we have a new constitution under the PCC Act. And we have heard both the Attorney General and the Prime Minister. In fact, when there should have been two referendums, one by the church and one by Oceania,
Mm-hmm.
stipulated that the PCC Act also having a referendum act, which is a farce because, as you rightfully said, Belize only have one constitution. There is no other constitution. So to be stipulating that the PCC Act in a referendum act is a false narrative that they are throwing out there to the people. Likewise, if such has been the case, and as we say here in Belizean affairs, these people always tell on themselves. How
Mm-hmm.
come they didn't say that the same PCC Act has a referendum act when it comes to this referendum that is being held in Kikaka on the 8th of October? That within itself is just showing
Great
to you, the people at
observation.
home and abroad, the intention of the government. They
Yes,
only
sir.
do these things when it tends to want to suit the agenda which they are trying to perpetrate.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I go back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. And very lucid commentary and contribution in context. All I'd like to add to that is to say these people know what they're attempting to do. It's not by oversight, it's not by error or by omissions. It's a deliberate, concocted effort that they're trying to perpetrate wrongdoing, but they want to have the people accept culpability for whatever the outcome is. They want to commit sedition, but they don't want to be the one being blamed for the seditious activities. They want to hide behind the general public to say that, well, the public demanded, or the public wanted, or the public agreed, or the public voted, or whatever. That's how these jackals operate. They're a bunch of bamboozlers. And some of them are bamboozlers extraordinaire. Because that's about how they operate, and they have no other modus operandi. They don't operate any other way. You can even predict ahead of time what they're trying to do, what they want to do, when they want to do it, and how they are attempting to implement it or get it done. But they cannot commit sedition, overthrow the system without the support of the people. And they don't feel like the people know enough So they want to slick the people or outwit the people or lie to the people to get the people to apparently give them the powers of control of the governance rather than them having to depend on the governor general and or the head of state. They want to become their own head of state. Bottom line. And if they ever succeed at becoming their own head of state with no accountability to any entity above themselves, and for whatever is it that they want to choose to do, we'll get a little bit more of what's happening right now with the Budna affair, and maybe a little bit worse. Anyhow, I'll like to jump to 57. Uh, we have 100 and odd of these things that we need to be dealing with. So, okay, I republished an item for citizenship in Belize, and this 57 deals with citizenship. I don't want to deal with that particular part right now. I want to go to another section that ties in with the part that I was reading before, with the powers of the Governor General and the powers of. Let me see. Just give me a second, please. There we go. Under Part 4, the Governor General, they are saying to amend item number 61. There's something here in my face right now. I need to get it open. Okay. Amendment number 61 says amend to abolish the office of the Governor General. Remember I mentioned that a little earlier? Why do they want to abolish the office of the Governor General? It's an asked and answered question, because I already stipulated what they are attempting to do. That is that they want to get rid of the Governor General, and presumably somehow or another the Prime Minister will be tasked, I don't know by who, with all the functions of the Governor General. Because I know the head of state is the one that decides who the Governor General is or who that power is assented to. Maybe they're going to go to the head of state and ask the head of state to accept the amendment to the Constitution so as to allow them to actually get rid of the head of state, so they don't have to have no representative of the head of state as a Governor General. Maybe that, I mean, that's how ludicrous the perception.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, sir. Go right ahead.
but
I'm going
he's
to hold.
already tried to take over that role. A prime example is in this investigation.
Mm-hmm.
It is a proven fact he's trying to take over that role. That role.
And
You heard what he
the
said.
stuff not passing to law
That
yet
all that the information will
to
goes
him.
to him.
And he will decide whether
He
or not to pass
ordered
it
that it
or not.
goes to him and solely him, which is outside of the separation of powers.
Exactly.
He
The man
has nothing
is
to do with
drunk
that.
with power. The man is drunk with powers. And he does not understand or know anything about legal implications. He just wants to have it done according to his mind. He doesn't recognize any separation of powers. When he was stepping in front of the DPP and pretend that he has resolved a criminal matter unto himself, that should be pointed at him as well, because he had beef with the gentleman a couple of days before the gentleman was hauled off. Okay? So he should be a potential suspect. So why is it that he's grabbing this document, this report? Why is it that it's so important for him to violate his own constitutional authority and rights, and violate also the constitutional authority and rights of other officers who are not under his jurisdiction, who have independent authority under the Constitution to work along with the judiciary? He wants to act in the capacity of judiciary. He wants to act in the capacity as legislator. He wants to act in the capacity as chief executive. The man is drunk with power. power that he actually doesn't have any authority to exercise or deal with in the first place. But whether he knows that or not, it's immaterial to him. Uh, Anyhow, was that your last comment on that point, sir? That I would elaborate a little bit more before I move to the next recommendation 62. You have a second point or something else that you want to add to what you had said earlier? Greg? Greg? Oh, your mic is off. Your mic is off.
Go ahead and proceed,
I'm not
sir.
hearing you. Oh, okay.
Go ahead
Yeah.
and proceed.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the PCC recommendation, the PCC recommends that the office of the Governor General be abolished, as well as repealing the whole part of 4. All the items under part 4 of the Constitution, which is numbers, I think it's number 30, 31, 32, 33, and a few others. They want to repeal all of that out of the Constitution. Nothing should be in the Constitution that refers to a Governor General. Any powers or authorities that the Governor General is exerting or is entitled to exercise, they don't want any such powers exercised above them. They want the powers exercised, but not by a Governor General. They want to exercise those powers themselves. Well, all they have to do is make themselves a king. I'm just being facetious. I'll skip that little part and I'll go to recommendation number 62. Recommendation 62 says repeal and replace part 4 with the establishment of the office of the Constitution. That is, that the powers vested in the Governor General and the powers vested in the court will be vested now in an office of the Constitution. That is, that they will have an office with some individuals there. From what I read, and I think we might read here and go further, they will take 5 people that the Prime Minister will recommend to be like a constitutional court, people of his choice and preference. Not the judges, not the Attorney General, not the Legal Commission, and for that matter of fact, under the judiciary, not the Supreme Court Chief Justice, or any other justice for that matter of fact. As a matter of fact, the ultimate authority that has to do with any laws in Belize hereafter, if they were to implement these things that they're amending and trying to get done, will be that the Prime Minister will have the ultimate say as regards to what's constitutional and what is not, because he will have the right and the authority and opportunity to appoint these new members now for this new commission that they are creating now, where it says repeal and replace part 4 of the Constitution with the establishment of, it should be the office of the Constitution. And let me explain to you what that is, or let me read it to you. Just bear with me for a second. Number 1, there shall be an office of the Constitution which shall be comprised of 5 members, as I previously stipulated, all of whom shall be natural-born Belizeans and be of 35 years or older at the time of appointment. 1 nominated by the Prime Minister, 1 by the majority of the House of Representatives, which the Prime Minister controls, 1 by the majority of the Senate, which the Prime Minister also controls, 1 by the majority of magistrates and judges, which the Prime Minister also controls by virtue of holding on to the office of the budget and the office of the finance, that determines the budget for and the financing of the judiciary. So we'll have one person that is recommended by the majority of the judges, magistrates, and judges, and one by the majority of the elected local government representative who form the city councils and the town boards, town councils, village council, and alcaldes. So, for all intents and purposes, that one person there as well has the blessings of the prime minister. In other words, the prime minister is going to appoint all five of these people, all of whom he has control over. The last village council election, PUP won by a large majority. The town boards, PUP have the majority of the town boards. The city council, PUP have the two city councils, right? Belmopan City Council and Belize City Council. For all intents and purposes, the prime minister has control of that, and all the other four people. The five of these individuals are within the purview of the prime minister, according to what they will like to have happen based on this modification here. And those individuals will have powers over the Supreme Court because they will constitute they will be sitting then like a court above the High Court, a constitutional court. So for all intents and purposes, very likely we may not be using the Caribbean court anymore after that. If they get to put this stuff in place, we will not need a CCJ. I hope people are aware of these peculiarities and the outcome of any such localized final court of appeal, where currently they just put Mr. Marla's wife on the appellate court and they put her there for 2 months because some issues are supposed to be coming to that particular court, that they want people of confidence to be the people who will be able to sit on those appellate matters and give them a victory in terms of being successful at the appellate level as well. So you can see how these people operate. They're jackals, they're hyenas, they're scofflaw. They do not operate with any sense of legality or propriety or any sense of fairness or proper judgment. All these matters are supposed to go and dealt with under the separation of powers doctrine and the where the limitation of the prime minister's powers is as regards to legal matters, where the court has, according to section 93, 94, and 95, unlimited jurisdiction, and not only unlimited jurisdiction, but unlimited original jurisdiction. In other words, there's nothing that's outside the purview of the court. According to these guys, that will cease to exist, because these five members then will determine whether or not what the court is ruling is appropriate, acceptable, and or constitutional. And somewhere, at some point, Greg, I would like to ask that in the future we flesh this out more in detail for the public benefit, because these are big stuff and it's a big part of the subject, and it needs a little bit more time than we can give in a 1 hour and a half process. Right now we're just doing an overview, but at some point in time, hopefully we'll be able to come back to them or to these matters and flesh them out more in detail so that the average man on the street can get a sense of what it is, because I'm of the impression that these guys in government will still want to put this PCC Act in place and pretend that it should trump our constitution. I'll read another little part here just and then I'll get out of it. Functions of the office. What is it that the office is going to be doing? Okay, I try to preempt just now and give you some little tidbits on it, and now I'm going to read it physically from the document. Under item number 2 of section 62, I read item number 1 just now. I'm going to read item number 2, and it reads as follows. The office of the Constitution shall have the following functions. Okay, be careful now, pay attention. If you don't know, and you have to deal with these things in the future, ignorance of the law is not going to exculpate you. You will still get hit over the head. Under paragraph A, it says, the education of the citizen on the Constitution and the process of governance. This includes ensuring that the curriculum of primary, secondary, and tertiary schools carry the material and instructions as well as that there is constitution, there is continuous communications with the public on topics concerning the Constitution. That is that they're going to be like the guardian of the Constitution. Paragraph B reads as follows. Constitution drafting, they will draft the Constitution or any modification or alteration thereof. Constitution drafting jurisdiction by one, for example, adjudicating issues arising in, in the Constitution, making process, and two, initiating or requiring legislation that give life to the Constitution. And item number 3, reviewing the constitutionality of laws in advance of, of legislation ante factum. That is that before the legislation get to the House and be voted on. 4, reviewing the constitutionality of constitutional amendments. Reviewing the proposals, treaties, regional and international membership to foreign bodies and report its findings to the Senate. Now, we all know that the Senate is the one that's under the current constitution is tasked with that obligation. But the Prime Minister is taking on to himself the powers that's going to determine the legality of these matters. In other words, he's usurping legal authority and legal powers from his judiciary branch because, according to the Constitution, only the judiciary, a court of jurisdiction, has the authority to pronounce legality or illegality or deal with any substantive matters of criminal activities or crimes. I'll read the last part C of this section here, and then I'll get out of that and ask Greg if you can give us a comment on what is being stipulated here from your vantage point. Let me see. E. Item number E. It's not too long. It's very short. Well, at least let me see if there's another part on the other side. Yeah, there's a small part on the other side. But it's very short. It's like 3.5 lines of information. Let me just quickly read it. Supervising the administration and ensuring the proper functioning of all commissions, agencies, statutory bodies, and all government elected bodies, requiring of them whatever is necessary to comply with the Constitution, which is broad. Anyhow, I will not expand my commentary on that. I'll just leave the commentary for Greg. Greg, would you please grace us with your perception of what is going on there?
Well, as you mentioned before, it is plain to see that the present government and the Prime Minister is overreaching when it comes to our Constitution, because what they are doing is amending the Constitution informally, not
Mm-hmm.
formal. And when they do that, they are creating loan laws that is inconsistent with the present Constitution. And they
Null and
should know
void.
that. They should know that because they have learned women and men in the present government and
Mm-hmm.
that is seated in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So they know that, but
Seated in cabinet too, Mr. Brackett.
that is correct. But it's like, as we mentioned, the Budna's incident. They are overreaching and they're telling a farce. When you hear the Minister of Police, who's also the Minister of Home Affairs,
Mm-hmm.
when you hear the acting commissioner, when you hear the Prime Minister,
Mm-hmm.
all saying they haven't seen the tape, but yet Mr. Flores can be placed an interdiction. That is telling you that they are lying. Because then, if you are not sure and you are saying it's an allegation, how can you then place this officer an interdiction? It doesn't make sense. And as I say, they always tell on themselves because the acting commissioner come and specify why he was placed an interdiction because he was presently on the tape. But he's saying he didn't see it. So somebody is not telling the truth. I go back to you, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much for your lucid input. I hope a lot of Belizeans at home and abroad would benefit from those insightful observations, analysis, and conclusions. Uh, in the interest of timeliness, because this particular task that I'm trying to do here tonight, well, I need to leave a little part, like I said. Okay, I'll just do this last one, last one here, quickly. Let's see how quick I can get it done. Because I promised that one day was to go to that stuff that you had written about, no, and see if we can flesh out some of the stuff in there. So you can, would you kindly like start prepare your mind for that part for us, so you can help us out. Um, I'll go to part 5 of the Constitution of Belize, where it speaks about the executive. And in my preface and commentary to the presentation tonight, I alluded to the executive powers of the country, which is vested in the head of state, which is grandfathered to or allowed for the governor general to grant ascension to subordinate officers who are the ministers that come to him for their ministerial portfolio ascension after the general election. And he ascends the power to the prime minister and the powers for all the other ministers and their ministry. So now they're proposing here on the recommendation number 63 by saying to the establishment of the executive authority, as if it's not already established under the current constitution. But let me show you how the wordplay turns out, right? I'll read it for you. Under 62.1, it says, repeal section 36.1 and replace with what is in bracket here right now. Okay, repeal the whole of that 36.1 in the current constitution and replace it with, as I read here, open quotation, the executive authority of Belize uh, is vested in the Prime Minister, who is head of state. Would you, gentlemen and ladies who have heard me expound in the earlier part of the program, recall what I was trying to say then in my own words? I was just giving speech to the words that I had already read in my previous reviews of these matters, right? But now reading it is only affirming and confirming that what I was saying had its merits because I was speaking correctly to the facts. But here you get to see it for yourself. Of course, you can't see what I'm seeing. It's an electronic version of the document that is still not being made public yet after so many months. But they're going to come back in a hurry one of these days and tell the people, okay, well, you know what? Let's have a referendum. Let's follow the Constitution. We'll let you guys vote. And we want to change the Constitution? Yes or no? But they're not giving them the opportunity to learn what is it that they're trying to change. All these different things that I'm talking about here and a lot much more. Okay? There are jackals and hyenas and vampires and bamboozlers. And run up on you at the last minute and catch you in the emotion or the, deciding, okay, well, whether you want a constitution change, yes or no. And if you change it, well, yeah, be better for us because then we could give you better governance. It's not the constitution that is stopping these scofflaws from giving us better governance. They want the constitution changed so that the constitution can authorize them, as they said in their amendment to the constitution number 13, that they want to exculpate themselves and the police officers and all government employees who had committed crimes in the past, is committing crimes now, and exculpate them as well for all possible future potential crimes that they would commit or could commit. Isn't that broad and overreaching? Isn't that an abuse of powers? That you to tell the jackals them who go out there and commit crimes under the color of law as police officers, beating up and brutalizing and shooting and doing all manner of evil to people out there on the street, that you to tell them ahead of time now with this constitutional change that you're proposing, that they will be authorized to do exactly that with no consequences. They will not even be brought in on no kind of internal affairs issue either because, you already exculpate them and therefore you can't, if the constitution is changed to allow them to do that and be like that, then why are you complaining? Why would the public complain? And when the public complain, they will just charge the public for some other devious charges that has nothing to do with the original issue. Secondary charges, fabricated at that. I didn't finish read the whole of that particular part there, but in the interest of time, I'll come back to that maybe on another occasion, and I would like to transition. Greg, you want to give us a quick, maybe a 1 minute thought on just what I read there just now, and then you go straight into your other stuff, no? So if you don't mind.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it is plain to see what is happening. When I said that the separation of powers is not working and executive is taking over.
Right on the head.
And
Hit the nail on the head.
it is showing because you lost a case that you're supposed to appeal,
That is the
but you
government.
know you overstep your bound. And we have been saying this, we have been calling these out and these SOE, and they were not listening. I have personally said that these SOEs, when you pick up these young men that have not committed a crime, is kidnapping
Human
and
trafficking.
it's also a violation of international law because
Right?
you're doing human trafficking in your
Exactly.
own country. And as we can see, it has come back to haunt them. Why? Because they had extended it one step too far in the abduction of Mr. Budna. And you know what? It has backfired on them.
Listen,
So This 13th Amendment that they are trying to propose is not needed. And I will tell you why it is not needed. Because they already have laws.
Mm-hmm.
They have a law for gangbangers. If you're a member
Which,
and found guilty,
Mr. Brackett, that law
yes,
is also unconstitutional. Okay, by the way, but it's on the book, so you're right by alluding to it. But it's unconstitutional.
right, it is. It
Go ahead, sir.
is. The law for gangbanging itself is in violation of freedom of expression guaranteed by Section 12 of the
And
Constitution.
freedom of assembly under Section 13, and a lot of stuff. But let me stop interjecting and disturb a trend of thought. So because you need to transition to the other more important thing at this point, no, if you don't mind.
So
So we're not running out of time.
these the government, as I say, keep making laws for different people, and they continue to discriminate
Mm-hmm.
because any other Belizean had they did the act that happened to Mr. Budna would have been arrested and locked up. And I want to say this,
While the investigation goes on, who is locked up right now while the
but you don't
investigation is
need
going
to
on?
investigate, Mr. Chairman. Once one has been identified as
Mhm.
as the acting commissioner had said, one
But
was identified, so you don't need to investigate for that.
Mr. Brackett, we who have seen the tape, the bogo, I mean the tape that was available for us to see, we who have seen that are getting to that conclusion, arriving at that conclusion. But these gentlemen are even intimating that there may not be a tape available.
But Mr.
I mean, that's
Brackett,
how crazy the thing again.
that is why I'm saying when I said, if
Uh,
you listen to what the Minister of Police, the Prime Minister, the acting commissioner said, the investigator, none of them, according to them, has seen the tape. So they're saying to the public,
it
no
doesn't
tape
exist according to
exists.
them.
It don't exist because we haven't seen it. That's why they keep using the word alleged. But
uh,
how can you have a alleged incident when you place someone an interdiction and your acting commissioner specify on national TV why he was placed an interdiction? So I don't see them getting out of that, Mr. Chairman.
and even the prime minister himself had said that he had put Mr. Rosado on leave because he gave him a report that was not substantive enough or was not an incomplete report. Like, in other words, he was
Well,
penalizing him for not doing his job right. And then he came
well,
back and said, "Well, the man has to make it go and
he
you
said
can't please
he
both of them at
wanted
the
to
same
do
time."
it. But I want to clarify something because I also think it's a farce. The acting commissioner did not put Mr. Flowers an interdiction. Mr. Flowers was placed an interdiction the 7th of September.
Mm-hmm.
The acting commissioner did not take up that role until the 8th
Yeah,
of September
exactly,
when Mr. Rosado was placed on that 45 days leave. So
exactly.
he couldn't have placed him an interdiction.
It was
What
not
he
his.
could have done was maybe sign the papers for it, but it was not his call. So that again is another farce. But I want to go to a tape, Mr. Chairman,
Go
to
ahead,
hear
sir.
what Mr. Bradley said.
To have an independent investigation would probably look something like this. Whoever is going to be in charge of the investigation would not necessarily be the investigator, in the sense that, just as an argument, you have the former Justice of the Supreme Court, Adolph Lucas, a man whose integrity is impeccable. He was a former police officer that rose to the ranks of inspector or superintendent, continued to study night school, and eventually became a lawyer, and then a DPP, was a chief magistrate, and then a judge. You would put someone with that kind of knowledge in charge of the investigation. He will decide how much he wants to rely on in-house investigators, because there is a smear on the police department, or he's going to commingle former investigators, persons who you can't intimidate, and utilize the police only where the police in-house is needed for certain matters. So remember, we can't hear out here. This is a country which the return commissioner has said there is a problem of trust between we the citizens and that department which basically runs itself. There's no oversight on the police. So what you would want is that the least they have to do with anything, the better. Now the initial investigation or report should have said that the 3 officers who were seen on video, who were known, because you can't tell who they are if you're in the police department, and a uniformed police came on the scene, that they are to be charged. You don't need another investigation to go over that. They were seen beating and they were seen taking away a man who ended up in enemy territory. They can be charged. They should be charged now. There's no hold up with that. They should be charged. Why have they not been charged? Because if they are charged, kidnapping in this country is many, many years in prison. They're not going to pay any fine. Any person who is accused and is proven to have kidnapped anybody are going to go to jail for a very long time. So the independent investigation can't be done by the police department because police officers are involved going right up the rank.
What part of that they don't understand?
They don't want to understand that. They want to investigate their
Make it
own.
make sense. Make it make sense.
It make sense. They want to investigate their own and sweep it under the rug, like the past incident where the Attorney General was put to investigate one of the elite.
Oh, that in the key. But quickly, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
You're the chairman. You're the chairman for your side of the program, right? But that's why I was putting up my finger for you ask for permission if you make a stipulate something quickly before I forget. The issue of the tape is what we currently are locked in on. And whether we get to see those tape or not, at some point in time, I'm of the opinion, as a strategist now, I'm putting on my strategist hat. I am of the opinion that because those tapes are so key in terms of proving the link and the persons who actually carry out the deed, that then might be able to give an opportunity to track back where the point of authority came from for them to have been able to carry out that deed so successfully within the power structures. Because at the end of the day, like I said, when Mr. Rosario came to the head of the table the first time, when you see big people at the head of the table lying, conflating, misstating what the facts and the truth are, it's because they are covering up for trying to divert where the investigation should head to, so it doesn't end up pointing at the person that is actually culpable for the whole initiation of this process. We are now being sent on a wild goose chase after bits and pieces, and even if those bits and pieces were to be put in place, at the end of the day, the investigation is so short and so compromised that we'll need an independent person who is almost impeccable, as Mr. Bradley was stipulating, to be able to go out there with the level of commitment and the level of veracity to accomplish what should have been accomplished initially. It's not going to be easily done. I yield back, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
You know, when you look at incident like this and the way it has been handled, you know, it's not a surprise. It has happened before, and we have seen it. You know, it happens and it goes under the rug. Nothing is being done about it. You know.
Remember what the judge said, sir? Ignore it, or what? He asked the other judge, the previous judge, Judge Honduras, asked Judge Navy, did you ignore it? and just let it go away. And it's the very same thing he ended up doing at the end of the day. He ignored the constitutional case that was brought to his attention for his resolution and expect it to go away. Why? As a favor to the government. Bunch of rascals.
I don't see them walking away from this. Honestly, I can't see them walking away from this. Even if the tape is crumbled and you want to say police officers is not involved or they want to say illegible, they cannot stand up and say that to that corporal who went outside and was
Exactly.
waved off, because
No,
that is key evidence.
no, they compromised that poor corporal, okay? Because he was seen on the tape being suborned by them. So, in order for them to suborn a corporal, they must come with authority far above that corporal for that corporal to have reacted the way he reacted, when in fact it is his duty as a corporal and as a police officer to have intervened to, as a minimum,
Even
try
if
and
it
stop that stuff from
even if
happening.
it had cost him his job, he
It was
took
his job.
to the Constitution and he could have ended up suing the government, even if it had cost him his job. Turning his back made him an accomplice
An
under.
accessory to the crime. And they didn't, I can tell you as of right now, he was not questioned or queried on the record. He may have been questioned and queried so that they could know what all went down, know the truth, so that they can figure out how to splice the truth to make it fit the narrative that they keep putting out there.
But Mr. Brackett, it won't take 3 days, not a day, not 6 months. All they had to do, go to him and ask him, did you see who was there? And he can't lie.
Well, he
Because if
probably
they
would.
said
No, wait, Mr.
if they
Chairman, he
said they
probably would.
were police, listen to me.
Yes, sir.
When
Yes, sir.
he was waved off, if they told him they were police, he had to recognize them to know that they were police. So I'm simply specifying that they know who it was. They
They were
had
on an
to know.
assignment. They were on an assignment.
Mhm.
Okay. Whether they told him that specifically in those specific words or not, what was told to that gentleman, that officer, that two-stripe officer, was enough to convince him that he need to stay out of what those other officers was doing, because those officers, the special unit, they go on special assignments in many instances, and they are given carte blanche, or they are given the leeway to do whatever they have to do in order to successfully achieve, the special assignments. When they got to the border, that gentleman, that other officer that let them through, was also suborned and exposed to the shenanigans that these guys were doing. So they contaminated a whole lot of different people along the way, and a whole lot of other people, like what the assistant commissioner, when he took over as temporary commissioner, while the commissioner was, well, what should I say? He didn't. The original commissioner did not relinquish his position. Okay, he was just stood down temporarily, like we said, for the 45 days that was placed on him, and which eventually did not become no 45 days. But the bottom line is, I'm talking about Mr. What is the gentleman's name, man? The one that substituted Mr. Rosado, man. What is it?
Mr. Bart Jones.
Mr. Jones. He said that if any police officer was implicated or had violated their code of conduct, that they would have, been put on remand and or be dealt with internally. Right? This is how they do their thing. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody goes to court unless Mr. Budna filed a case against the system, the Attorney General has no business getting involved in this process. It should have been the call of the DPP, Director of Public.
But I told you that I said it on the platform. A formal complaint had to be made. It's
And
the
they don't
same
expect
thing
for him
that
to make it
happened.
because he's not in a
It's
position
the
to do so.
same
He's in
thing that
jail.
happened in the Liars case against who when the Attorney General was investigating.
Yeah.
So
Investigating what?
it's the same thing.
He never did investigate nothing. He assigned himself and the cabinet assigned him to investigate or to pretend
Likewise,
to
I
be
said,
investigating to
you
kill
recall
time.
what I said before the
A
deadline?
bunch of scoundrels,
No
man. Like I say,
videotape will be shown because that
yeah,
is considered
yeah.
evidence, and no investigation will be completing to that max that they were asking for. You know, I don't
At the
know
end of
how
the
they
day,
will sweep it under the rug.
everything
Cannot
that
happen.
at the end of the day, Mr. Chairman, everything that we are chasing after right now is red herring to divert the attention of the public or the investigators or whoever else not from where the arrow should be pointing. In the first place, the arrow should be pointing at the people that gentleman had major conflicts or issues with. They should be the primary first individuals to be investigated on or to be queried into, uh, the issues that they should be investigated. Do you think anybody
Well,
is going to go to the
I
prime
want to
minister
say
and
this.
ask the prime minister for his phone to figure out who he was in contact with? Or you think the commissioner of police will give up his phone to his subordinate to carry out an investigation to figure out that maybe he was in contact with the third person that I had mentioned earlier that I didn't give a name for, that actually was doing this thing on behalf of the prime minister?
You know, let me put it this way. I keep saying that it will not go away, and I will express why. There's a lawsuit on behalf of Mr. Budna.
Mm-hmm.
When that goes to trial, even though it's a civil suit, and they play just the piece of tape that we show, and they want to say, well, you know what? This is not proof. Those attorneys only have to say, Your Honor, we want to subpoena the original footage because there is an understanding that 3 other places or 4 had cameras that caught the incident. You know what
But
will
that
happen? The
uh-huh.
judge will have to have them produce it.
But if they can't produce it because it's already done away with, because that's the link to the case,
And if they can't produce it,
then
they
they
will
can't get
lose
to
the
the person
lawsuit.
that is
And you
finally
know
proof
what
of
that
it.
is saying? That
They're
they
not carrying a
were,
pay out of the people's pocket as usual.
but losing the lawsuit will specify what happened, that they were involved. That's the part I'm
But
getting
you can't,
to.
yeah, but you see, under the theories of jurisprudence, right? If the evidence is not available, you can't say that they were involved. We could surmise that they were involved based on I mean, our abilities and knowledge and understanding of how the process and the system is supposed to work, and based on the evidence that has been provided so far, you know. But in court, when something is accepted as evidence, the provenance of the who had custody of the tape and whether or not the tape has been doctored or was the way the tape is right now, was it the way it was when it came off the hard disk the first time? All kind of little mechanics these
But
guys
Mr.
have themselves
Brackett,
behind technicalities,
if
you know.
we are speaking about evidence,
Mm.
the only true evidence in specificity is coming from Mr. Budna. Every tape that
He's a witness. So
he
what happened to him? He didn't die.
and he
What was the
recognized
mistake?
through, everyone that he said was directly in order, sir.
And those whose name he called can be put under enough pressures because it wasn't just one person that did the crime. So it was more than one of them. And if you could lock on to one of them, you could force the other ones them to be
You know
identified.
what I would do? You know what I would do to get to the bottom of this if I was a independent investigator? Man, I would call in one of those guys from outside and have these guys hooked up and give them a test, a lie detector test. Then you will know who all will rival because I'm sure
Well,
that they will
cabinet,
fail.
Mr. Chairman, cabinet has already provided a firewall for the DPP. I mean, not the DPP, for the police commissioner, right? For all intents and purposes, that is what cabinet did in their decree. When in fact they were stepping out of bounds because that matter had not gone through its proper judicial process for them to get involved. And I mean, okay, another thing too. Only the governor general have the authority which they are trying to exercise to pardon, to excuse, or to overrule or deal with any such substantive matters, especially in court or court-related issues. The prime minister don't have that as part of his portfolio, or any of the members of cabinet, because even the police minister can't alter any documents that
Well,
is part of
well,
a
well,
potential
that is
case
true,
under
sir.
a criminal
But
all of them
that
play
is
games.
true. But that
They all
can
they play
only
games and they
happen.
bamboozle the people.
That can only happen at the end of a trial and sentencing. The governor general could pardon.
And
So
without a proper report right now, when do you
yeah,
think we ever reach the trial stage? By then the next
there's
election
a
done
lot
hell
to it
already.
though. Anyway, Mr. Brackett, we are at
Are
that
you are
time,
you
and
for a closure, Mr. Chairman? Are you for
I
a
will
closure?
go to you for the closing.
Okay. Uh, I will not make reference to the first part of the program for the PCC thing that I was doing because I want to come back to that on a future date to continue until they finish up the whole project. No? But I would like to say, as regards to the Bunna scenario, like I said the first time we dealt with this matter, there are big people at the top of the table lying and covering on behalf of big people who were not at the table. There should be no need or justification for that if they're not trying to distract or divert the process so that they don't end up where they normally could have or would have or should have may end up. And as of right now, enough hanky panky has been carried on to the point where we have two investigations. One that was not up to snuff as far as the PM is concerned. The second one apparently was up to snuff because they exculpate the commissioner, or at least the declaration was made that the commissioner has no case to answer. I don't see how that deputy commissioner could make any such stipulation because only a judge has that power and authority to do that. Or at the most, or at the worst, the DPP could have maybe said, well, we don't need to do more investigation so that she could present the case or move forward with the case. But the case at this point would be against the government. And the only reason why the Attorney General would come in is if the case actually gets filed against the government, other than for strategic and management purposes that the Attorney General would want to be involved or need to be involved in terms of protecting the government's interests. But other than that, the fact that the Attorney General is the Attorney General, he should not be allowed and or be given the impression that he has any authority to determine criminality or conviction within the reins of the judiciary. He's a member of the executive. He has no authority over the judiciary and the unlimited um, uh, judicial powers and ability to deal with any matter of criminal activities in the country. That's out of his daily work. But anyhow, I yield back, sir. And I think that's one
Thank
last
you,
comment to
sir.
make on that matter.
I want to say this, right? It is my belief that the commissioner is done. You cannot remain in that position when you might have police officers who will be subordinate to you. And by saying that is unwilling to take orders from you because they know you was complicit. And you will have members in the public that will not look up to you.
Well, he said it himself,
So
Mr. Chairman. He said it himself
so
that the police
if
have a
I
problem
was
with
him,
people,
the right thing to do
credibility.
is to step down. With that said, I want to say good night to you, the people at home and abroad, and thank you for tuning into this, our 353rd episode of Belizean Affairs. With that said, I would like to say good night to you.